Welcome back to the NCO Journal podcast, where we explore NCO professional development. I'm your host, Staff Sergeant Jared Woods. With us today is the managing editor of the NCO Journal, Chago Zapata, and our special guest, Sergeant Major Craig Collins. In this episode, we're diving deeper into this week's article by Sergeant Major Collins titled Project Athena in Action. Welcome to the podcast, Sergeant Major. Please tell us a little about yourself and how you became involved with Project Athena.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. First of all, thank you for inviting me to be a part of your podcast. My name is Sergeant Major Craig Collins. I'm the Sergeant Major for Curriculum Development at the Non-Commissioned Officer Leadership Center of Excellence. And I first got involved with Project Athena about the time I started working in curriculum development last March, April timeframe. Basically, it was coming down from our hire from TRADOC, and we wanted to go ahead and start incorporating Project Athena into curriculum development, into the different levels of PME and for the NCO Corps. So that's kind of what got the whole thing rolling when we started off.
Sergeant Major, for those who may be unaware of what Project Athena is, what is it and why is it important?
Yeah, Project Athena, just to put it simply, is a project that's confidential for soldiers, has progressive and sequential assessments across all levels of PME, and it's designed for one purpose. It's designed to help soldiers develop self-awareness. That self-awareness, then they can take that and use it to develop an individual development plan with using their leaders as coaches to help them gain that self-awareness on their strengths and weaknesses, to help them become better leaders and to just continue in their leadership progression as they move through their career.
What exactly do you mean by self-awareness? Can you explain that a little bit? What does that mean?
Yeah, from a Project Athena perspective, self-awareness is it kind of covers the broad spectrum of a soldier's physical and mental abilities. For example, Athena attacks three different insight areas: cognitive areas, personal areas, and leadership areas. And by taking the assessments, and no matter what level of NCO PME you're at, you can use it in this kind of the same fashion. But what you can do is the assessments, the feedback you get after you complete the assessment will enable you to identify strengths and weaknesses. And this is all about setting goals, short-term and long-term goals, which you'll put on your IDP. Then you can fill in the cognitive areas of personal, cognitive, and the insight areas and leadership. And you can take the strengths and weaknesses you find from the assessment feedback and then put those down on your IDP, and you can start leveraging things. You can leverage those strengths to accomplish your short-term and long-term goals. And then you can also leverage them to work on areas that might need improvement for the individual.
What spurred the need for Project Athena, or how did it come about?
Project Athena was developed at CAPL, the Center for Army Professional Leadership, and this originally started with the officer cohort, and then as it started gaining traction and they started seeing some really positive results, the leadership wanted to push it down to the NCO level. So that's how it became involved, or that's how it became immersed into the NCO PME system at all different levels. And the way it's broken down is pretty interesting. You have 3 assessments at BLC, 2 or 3 at AOC, SOC, and then a couple more in MLC. But they all build upon each other. So you start off with about self-awareness and social awareness and do a Leader 180 at BLC. And then as you move forward, you'll hit a Leader 180 again at ALC. And that's a good benchmark for soldiers to look at. Okay, so this is how I've progressed from the time I got promoted to sergeant right after BLC to now I'm getting ready to be a staff sergeant. And then you can kind of reassess, realign your IDP to continue working at your long and short-term goals. They could be personal or professional in nature, or both.
All right.
Sergeant Major, what let's dive into your article here. Could you give us a quick rundown of the article? I mean, just a quick, what exactly is it that you wrote for us here for the audience?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this article, Project Athena in Action. In this article, I wanted to take a look at how you can take the theoretical application of these assessments, the feedback you receive from the assessments, and then how you can translate that into concrete actions. And what we did was I looked at a scenario from Iraq in Baghdad specifically, where in the scenario I'm a platoon sergeant. I have we're doing patrols and our AO, our area of operations. We're being attacked by different insurgent cells who are placing improvised explosive devices to disrupt our lines of communication. So we looked at three of the assessments. Looked at sense making, critical thinking, and systems thinking. Now, these assessments are given at ALC and MLC levels, but in order to put it into a scenario that would have practical application moving forward for, say, a senior NCO, this was what I was taking a look at. And the important thing I would like everyone to understand about this is all three of these assessments go together. And that's the sequential and progressive part of Project Athena. They work together to help an individual or a team really figure out what is the problem, how can we attack this problem to achieve our desired end state. Okay, so when we think about sense making, the sense making assessment is defined as a deliberate, iterative effort to create understanding in complex situations. Okay, this means we want to assess and draw conclusions based on cues, conditions, and the context of the situation. Okay, the iterative part means you do it in iterations. Okay, it takes multiple passes at this to kind of really figure out what is going on. And the way we use this in Athena is you do the assessment, you get the feedback, and then you look at the results. And then Capo has a ton of resources that soldiers can use to get after figuring out how to come up with a plan to get better at this, get better at making sense of things, of complex situations. And their website has just a ton of great resources that soldiers can use as they're moving forward. But when you think about the nature of the operating environment as it stands right now, it's more complex than it's ever been in the past. When I came in the Army back in the 90s, the operating environment was nowhere near this complex. But as we've moved forward with the information age, you have the internet, cell phones, handheld devices, information travels essentially at the speed of thought. And that is going to require leaders to be able to make rapid decisions and understand what's going on around them to be effective in this operating environment. The second one we looked at was critical thinking. And critical thinking's been, that term is tossed around a lot, I know, but it's really simple. It's just asking questions. Who, what, why, when, and where. And ask those questions, take any emotion out of the answers, and what you're left with will help you to understand, have a better understanding of what the situation really is versus what we think it is or our preconceived ideas of what it might be. And then lastly is systems thinking. And this one's kind of, I kind of like this one the best of all these, in the sense of, in my mind, systems thinking is real simple. It's about people, places, and things. Who are the people involved? Where are the places this activity is occurring? And what things are involved that are making this happen? So if you put all three of those together and you look at a complex situation, you can distill the complexity down to its simplest terms, and then you can formulate a plan to actually attack or to change that to what we want it to be and accomplish our end states.
Can I ask you? I'd like to ask you a quick question about this. It seems like a lot of things to think about when you're confronted with a situation like the scenario that you introduced us to. What if I mean, how do you turn this theory into action? Like, say somebody is in that scenario that you introduced in your article with the NCO in Iraq. How does all this come into play when you don't have a lot of time to think about it? You know, when you have you have a situation in front of you and it's time to move forward and you don't have time to think or to do all this stuff. How does this come into play?
That's a great question. From my experience, looking at making rapid decisions on the battlefield or in the tactical environment, part of it is having intuition and experience. Okay, the intuition is like you get a feeling or an idea of the direction something's going, and then the experience part is, okay, I've done this before, I've seen something similar to this, or um, based on previous events, this is the direction I think it might be going. So you take those things and then you can overlay, you understand what your mission is for that particular operation. And then the combination of those things are, I think, what helps with the rapid decision making process, which is going to, in my opinion, will become more and more important in the future with the changes to the operating environment, the complexity that's been introduced in, technology has definitely changed the way the world operates, and that obviously includes combat operations. So you have to have the intuition that you kind of have a feeling or idea of what you think is going on. You have experience that you can pull from because you've done it before, and then you're looking at, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? So it's kind of a combination of those three things. And one area that I think Athena can really help leaders in is when you get in those situations, if you've used the assessments, you created an IDP, you've identified strengths and areas that need improvement. These kind of things won't be your first. It won't be the first time you've actually been confronted with these types of situations. Okay, I think that gaining that institutional experience and using the products that Project Athena has provided for soldiers can really be beneficial as they move forward in their careers. And depending on what kind of situation we're confronted with, they'll have a much better kind of baseline knowledge to pull from.
So we kind of went a full circle here. You're going back to self-awareness. So that's an interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, so that comes. Yeah, that's a great point. It comes right back to self-awareness. I understand myself. I know my strengths and weaknesses. I know areas I need to work on to improve. Excuse me, and areas that I can leverage.
How can you've talked about how Project Athena is used at self assessments at the BLC, SLC, ALC, SLC, and all the way up to the Sergeant's Major Academy. What about the organization? How can soldiers get the best out of Project Athena within the context of their units and organizations as a whole?
Actually, I'd like to add a little something to that. I mean, because soldiers, I mean, you're as a sergeant major, your experience and your environment is going to be different than, say, a young sergeant who's been in the Army 4 or 5 years and has a different mission. So maybe you can explain how this would affect people of different ranks.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great question. So as a sergeant major, you're right. I do see things through a little bit different lens or from a different perspective. But let's use the BLC example just for a second. So the basic leader course, soldiers are going to take 3 assessments. They're going to take a self-awareness, individual differences, which is a SED-I, and this talks about 12 different personality characteristics. It shows, and that covers 4 areas: interaction with others, approach to duty or work, drive for success, and dealing with challenges. So the soldiers will take that one on day, 1, 2, or 3, somewhere at the very first of BLC. Then a couple of days later, during their course of instruction at BLC, they'll take what's known as the Social Awareness and Influence Assessment, the SAIA. And this talks about how soldiers see the world. Okay, this is how they interact with the world. If they're introspective, if they're real outgoing, it kind of gives them those kind of indicators in the assessment. And then lastly, toward the end of the BLC course, they'll take the Leader 180, in which 5 of their peers in their class will then rate them on the leadership competencies and attributes. And then that tells a soldier how others see them. So essentially what's happening in the first part of Project Athena is a soldier takes the 3 assessments at BLC. In the simplest terms, what this does is it tells the soldier how they see themselves, how the soldier sees the world in the SAIA, and then the Leader 180 is how the world sees the soldier. Okay, now we have a really holistic perspective of an individual. This is how I see myself. This is how others see me. This is how I see the world around me. And you take that, and they take the feedback from the assessments, and then with coaching from an instructor at BLC or coaching from one of their first line leader back at their unit, or it could be anybody really. It doesn't have to be a leader, because the coaching is different than counseling. It's more talking to a soldier and decide, hey, what do you want to do? What areas do you want to work on? And then you help them work through that without really, giving them like an order to do something. Okay, so that's one thing important for soldiers to understand. The IDP and Athena is all about the soldier. It's about them, what they want to accomplish in their personal and professional lives. And by taking the feedback from the assessments and seeing how they see themselves, how others see them, how they see the world, they get a real holistic perspective as they're starting off their careers as an NCO. Okay, they've had experiences as a soldier for the first 2-3 years. They've been in the Army before they go to BLC. But the whole NCO, once they transition to becoming an NCO, that leadership aspect becomes much more important, and they're going to be expected to do more things and to take responsibility for people, places, and things, essentially for their soldiers, for their equipment, for the missions they're told to do. So at the team leader level, BLC assessments can really help a soldier get off to a great start as a leader. And then as they're moving forward, we talked about intuition and experience a few minutes ago. As they're moving forward in their careers, that's when you start adding in experience, you start adding in intuition, you start adding in the mission itself. What are we trying to accomplish? So that's one way that at the BLC level, Athena can get a soldier off to a great start. And then as you're moving forward through your career and you hit the different levels of PME, you'll get more assessments that will provide more insights into your personal characteristics, whether it be cognitive skills, whether it be personal in nature, or whether it be your leadership skills. As you move forward, you'll get the Leader 180 again at ALC, and then at SLC and MLC, you'll get the Leader 360. So then we're looking at a much bigger aperture right there from a leadership perspective. That helps add to that experience and can help guide a soldier as they encounter different situations out in the force and different missions. And learning more about how to become an effective leader in the contemporary operating environment. So the big thing I would suggest is the individual development plan, the common individual development plan that is specific right now for Athena. That is the tool that soldiers can use to really get after developing these leadership traits and qualities that are going to serve them as they move through their careers. I think I was part of a team that over the course of the last 6-8 months, we went out to pretty much most of the NCOAs and taught a coaching workshop to the instructors to help prepare them to facilitate the production of these IDPs by the soldiers as they're moving through the PME system. And that was that's a great experience in a lot of ways. But a lot of the feedback I was getting from the force was they thought this was a great product that would really help soldiers. And they wanted soldiers to understand the importance of it. It's not an assessment of the soldier. It's not a report card. It's not an NCOER. It is specifically designed to help the soldier achieve their short and long-term goals. And leaders at any echelon can coach a soldier on how to get through. I would suggest this: people in the force, leaders, coach soldiers every day, whether they realize it or not. And what Athena can help a leader and a soldier do is to capture some of those coaching moments and put it onto an IDP where it can then become actionable. Now I can action it. I see what I'm going to work on. I want to get promoted. I want to become better at my whatever battle drill that's appropriate. I want to get better at PT, for example. That's a good one. Okay, so setting goals for your physical fitness can become very important. If you put it on a piece of paper, okay, then it becomes something that you can look at, and it becomes more actionable. And and what I found here at NCO is working with a couple of people around our campus is we've done the whole the Project Athena assessments. We've done the coaching process. We completed the IDPs. And then we revisit it about once every 30, 60, or 90 days, depending on what the soldier wants to do. And what I found by doing that is the soldier, when they have someone to talk to about their goals and how they want to get after it, it spurs them to action. It gives them some motivation. It shows that, hey, a leader does care about me. They're taking time to talk to me about this stuff, and they're genuinely interested in helping me become a better soldier, helping me become a better husband, better father, better wife, better mother, whatever the case may be. But that kind of personal connection can be very powerful, and it really inspires soldiers to want to do better. I mean, it's non-judgmental. Okay, it's non-attributional. If a soldier wants to share their feedback from the assessments, they can. If they don't want to share it, that is their right also. The leader can't force the soldier to share their feedback. But the idea is we want soldiers to get used to being in working in an environment of assessments. And what I mean by that is there's going to be assessments at all levels of NCO PME, and we want soldiers to get comfortable with that by looking at themselves. Hey, here's where some areas I could work to get better, and to take positive action to get after those areas. And that's been my experience working with this for the last almost last 9-10 months now. It's been very positive, and there's been some really great results have occurred because of the interactions that I've had with soldiers, and in just watching the soldiers work with their IDP and accomplish some of their short-term goals. I find it very rewarding as a leader from the aspect of their success. I'm very happy for their success, and it gives me a great sense of I guess pride in them, in the force. And we have such great soldiers in our Army. I just think it's very important that we do everything we can to enable them, to set the conditions for them to be successful moving forward, especially with the complexity of the contemporary operating environment. It's going to be very important that soldiers are flexible, they're agile, they're physically and mentally fit, and they're confident in their abilities to face any obstacle that gets in their way. Now, an obstacle could be more. It could be more than just a tactical obstacle. It could be a professional, it could be personal in nature as well. And one area, I had a discussion recently that one area that some people think that we could probably do better at, or we could do a little bit more, is in helping soldiers in their personal affairs. And I know in the NCO PME world, we are taking great steps to get after that. There's financial readiness being added is one way we're helping soldiers. We're looking at the holistic health and fitness is being added, and it's in being incorporated into curriculum to help soldiers really become much more well-rounded from a holistic perspective. And that's something that we're working really hard on here, and we're real happy with the initial results, and we're going to continue working to enable our soldiers to be successful.
From what you explained, and you were very well spoken and very descriptive in how you described this whole Project Athena. But just kind of from my perspective, looking at it, what this does is pretty much allows soldiers to accomplish their goal, so that they could be, without Project Athena and the kind of focus that it provides. Say a soldier's kind of firing at the target and they're scattered all over the place, firing at different times. And what Project Athena pretty much does is center everything and bring it into the black.
Yes, that's a great way to describe it. We're centering it. We're centering the soldier. It's all about that development, that self-development. Self-development then ties into leader development, because anyone in the Army can be a leader. And I like to think that everyone is a leader to some degree, and we want to help them get better as individuals and as leaders of teams, squads, platoons, whatever the case may be. But it's about really the bottom line of Athena, I think, in a nutshell, is Project Athena is designed to help soldiers become better leaders and better people from a holistic perspective that will then enable them to accomplish any task, whether it be personal or professional, in support of our nation and our goals and objectives. Really, if you break it down into its simplest parts, Project Athena is about three components. It's the assessments and the feedback, it's the coaching aspect, and it's the individual development plan. And I would suggest that to the force that individual development plan is an area that we can really get after to maximize the skill sets of our soldiers and our leaders to help them be better prepared to face any obstacle that they might encounter.
There's nothing else, and thank you for joining us, Sergeant Major. Appreciate your time.
Hey, great. Thank you so much for inviting me, gentlemen.
And thank you, our audience. And remember, put your knowledge to the page, submit articles, and get published with the NCO Journal. Remember to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and check out our webpage. We'll catch you on the next episode of the NCO Journal podcast.